let's talk about what everybody's here to see. Breakman thought this would not happen. Breakman said you're going to have an excuse as to why you're not showing it this week. Well, aha! The only excuse I can say is that Twitch is dropping some of my frames, so this is not going to look that great, but it's going to be on YouTube. And Arcade1up came out with the Tron arcade cabinet. It came out a little bit early. When I pre-ordered it at Target, when the pre-orders went live a couple months ago, I was told mid-December. It showed up on Black Friday. It showed up the day after Thanksgiving. And I picked it up because I am a sucker for the Arcade1up cabinets that have unique control schemes. I'm not going to own an Arcade1up cabinet that just has a joystick and buttons because there are other options for that I'm exploring. But I have the Star Wars cabinet with the yoke. I have an Outrun cabinet with a racing wheel, and I'm not going to buy a second one even though the Ridge Racer one was kind of tempting. And then Tron has the joystick and the spinner. I love Tron as well. In fact, I'm going to show this as well. Is that the only Disney hat pin I own is a limited edition from the UK Tron hat pin from 2017. I bought it at a convention. I'm a sucker for this, and you don't see that much Tron representation at Disney. You probably will at Disney World once the ride opens, the new Tron ride that's next to Space Mountain. But I have a Tron pin, so it's a nice pin. It's the only Disney hat pin I even own because I don't do the pin trading, but I love Tron. So now the arcade games I didn't play that much of. So it's not that I really have a deep nostalgia for the Tron arcade game. It's more that I love Tron. I'm going to show you now the part of the build as well as some of the as well as a little bit of the playing of it and kind of talk through it because this is the most difficult build I've done. And I realize I am also not an IKEA builder. I don't generally build IKEA things. So the box is 120 pounds, by the way. Good luck trying to get it in by yourself. But it's this other Arcade1ups took me about 4 hours to build. This, I thought I gave myself a little bit over 4 hours. And I got halfway there. It actually took me 8 hours total to build this thing. So what I've got in the video going on here is that I'm pulling some of this stuff out. Everything's packed in very densely. They packed it really, really well. The first thing that comes out is that I took out was the set of control decks, with the joystick and everything. That's important, and I'm going to show you how important that is in a second. But there are these huge boxes. It took me about an hour just to get everything out. So there's a lot of different parts, and this does come with the stool. That's the thing to know, is that there is a stool instead of a bench, but it still also has the riser. Now the control deck, they're surrounded by styrofoam, and they've got a little cardboard around the styrofoam. Inside that styrofoam, you take the cardboard. That's where all your hardware is. It took me 45 minutes to try to figure out where the screws were. So there's hardware in there, and then two little wooden things, little tiny things, is in there. Tire Class, can you buy it without the stool? No. They all come with the stool. And in fact, the stool is in a box. It actually has its own instructions and its own hardware. And that you can... And so you can see me actually pulling everything out in here. E3VL asks, why aren't the boxes labeled? Because probably to save money on manufacturing, as well as the fact that in the boxes, there's always different things. Like there's like the ones that had the riser also had some of the side panel stuff. So that's why you have all that stuff. Now, the hardware for the stools are attached to the legs. So that's where you're going to want to look for those. So the stool, it's a very easy assembly. There's only 4 parts to it. And they give you little Allen wrenches to put the screws in. So it looks bad when I'm doing it here, but trust me, it all works. I didn't film the entire process of everything because I'm also terrible at this stuff. But it's a nice sturdy little metal stool with a little with little Tron thing on the top. Breakman says the stool doesn't look comfortable. It's fine enough for playing the pinball games. It's not a soft stool. Now, the Tron cabinet is bigger than the others, so the side panels are actually attached together with a little metal thing that attaches them together. They're not just one thing. So if you've done the Star Wars cabinet or a different cabinet, you attach them together. Now, what I'm showing right now is the hardest part of the build. So we've actually fast-forwarded like 4 hours in time for this build. And it's the hardest part. So when you attach the screen, there are these little white tabs, and I rewound in the video here. There are these little white tabs that you have to attach the screen to the side of the cabinet. These are very difficult to get on. And you'll notice on the back here that there is the Wi-Fi antenna on the left, and you have to try to get the attach the screen to that side of the cabinet while still using while not hitting the Wi-Fi antenna. So there's a lot of cables here. There's a lot of cables, and the way that you actually do it is you actually build on one side with it flat on one side, and then you put the other side on top, and you line everything up. So it's a very difficult build. You can actually see that in the Star Wars build I did. I actually showed that process, but since these are all kind of the same, I don't actually build that, and it was very frustrating, and I would have run out of room on my memory card trying to film the entire thing. So this is the part where you're putting in the control deck. They actually recommend that you plug it in before you put it in, but you can't really do that easily because the cord cables aren't long enough. And people are saying you should have 2 people. I actually did. I actually finally had to bring my wife in to help. But for the video, I was trying to not have that much 2 people, just show it as myself, because you should be able to do this yourself. There are a lot of cables in the back and there's like joiner things, like there's lights on the top and you have to join them to go into a lighting thing, and then there's lights that hook into the control deck, and then there's 2 things that hook into that hook into the power and stuff. So, and the thing is, they're labeled, which is the best part. This is the best part, is that they are labeled, and I'm actually going to cut back to live here. They're labeled in the guide. And I'm pulling up the guide here, the builder guide, with these little these letters. So this is the wiring diagram that I'm showing right now. So like M, B, N1, A, and stuff. Now the thing is, these are not the letters that are on the actual wires. That's not there. What those are the pieces they're attached to. So like A is, I think, the screen, and another thing was the control deck. That's what they're actually referencing, but you can't see those because you've built the cabinet, and so the actual letters are now hidden. So I don't know which one I'm supposed to hit, or which one. And so when I cut back to the video here, and you notice that I'm going to turn it on, one of the lights comes on right when I plug it in. That's because I screwed up on the plugs. It took me 3 times to get this plugged in correctly. So I turned the unit on, and the top light comes on, and the black light comes on. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so this is the first startup sound. Now notice, and I'm going to spoiler alert kind of, notice that's the regular Arcade1up splash screen. That's important to know. So this was the first time booting it up, and I didn't realize I had plugged it in all wrong. So this is the, I'm making sure that everything works. It's like, hey, you want to go on the Wi-Fi? I'm like, no, I don't. But everything works. All the buttons work and everything. So I was happy. And this was at about, I actually did this after the shows on Sunday night. This is about 2 in the morning is when I'm doing this. So this is just me kind of loading up and seeing, okay, these games actually work. So I've got the cabinet finally built. I built it out in my little hallway, and so I was excited. So then it was time to get it into the riser. I built the riser. This is actually now at about 4 in the morning. And here I am alone. You shouldn't do this alone. Don't follow my example. And I set it on top of the riser, and notice how much taller it is than the Star Wars cabinet next to it. It's a tall cabinet. So now I'm actually in here. Now you'll notice that I've actually fixed the wiring. The actual joystick lights up. And then there's also another light bar and stuff. So I actually did fix the wiring and stuff. But they have the Wi-Fi setup here. And you actually have to like type in your password using the joystick and stuff to be able to use an Arcade1up account. So, Breakman asked, was there anger building? No, I was just tired. This was also shot that night. This is the first time I'm playing the game. And I'm 5'7", and it's a nice height for me with the riser on. So I don't even use the stool because I don't need to sit on the stool. But this is me playing Tron, the actual Tron game. I'm terrible at the game, by the way. So it's been so long since I've played this game that I'm terrible. Like I just did the tank one, and the tank shot me immediately. But it sounds nice. It looks good. There are settings that you can like have the smoothing set, but the minute you set any of those settings, when you do the online leaderboards for the Wi-Fi, because that's all you do with the Wi-Fi is these online leaderboards, you are no longer at arcade settings. So even like changing like how the screen's rendered will take you off of the arcade leaderboard and put you on the any leaderboard. Actually, Beat, that was the section where you're supposed to get into the center. You're supposed to walk into the center thing, and I actually did that first try. And then there is the breakout section here where you're trying to get into the MCP core, and you can hear the clicking. Like everything's got clicking. It's. I haven't played on a real Tron cabinet. It's also very hard to find the Tron joystick, so I don't know really how it compares to a real Tron cabinet. But it felt good. It felt fine. The controls feel fine. This is me doing the light cycles, trying to remember, and you start off on the bottom. And I'm like, I got this, and then it turns out I didn't get this on the first try. Because you're supposed to basically, play, and then, it's Snake, and you're not supposed to hit to the other guy, and I hit the other guy. You're not supposed to do that, by the way. And then, so I tried again, because I'm like, I'm going to do this time. I'm going to do it this time. And then, yes, you can fool the computer into getting into the thing, and then you beat it. Yay! Because you start off with 3 lives. I think you can get it up to like 6 lives. You can change a bunch of stuff, but that just takes you off the arcade leaderboard. And so I'm playing this at stock settings, at arcade settings. This is me doing the tank one again, and it doesn't end well. And then I lose my lives. I lose all my lives. But it's also the first time I played the arcade game in years. I also think it's terrible. It's 1-hit kill on me, but it takes 3 hits to kill them. That's unfair. I'm going to lodge a complaint with the MCP on that. The thing to know if you haven't played Tron, though, is that it's like enter your initials. Well, when they say initials, they really mean 2 letters. They don't mean 3. So you're going to actually need to remember that they only want 2 letters for your initials. Questbuster says it's nice they kept the neon highlight below the screen for the cab. When I had a chance to play with an actual cab, they could get pretty warm because of the bulb inside. You'll actually see that a little bit later, because that's actually a neat feature. There is a light bar. Look at that. I'm first place on my own cabinet. I am awesome. And I was when I did this, I was 322nd in the world at arcade settings. So now I'm going into Discs of Tron. And the thing to note about Discs of Tron is that there's 2 changes from if you've played the actual arcade cabinet of Discs of Tron. Discs of Tron, this is the, you versus the other program, and you're throwing your discs to try to knock them off. And that's this game. This is actually arguably the better game of the 2. But there's 2 things that are missing. One is going to be the background. So the actual Discs of Tron cabinet had a painted background behind and the TV screen was reflected up onto it. So it actually had more of a background. You could actually see the grid in the distance, but it was painted, and the screen was merely mirrored up. The screen was actually below the cabinet being mirrored up. This does not have that. This is just the just what was mirrored up onto the painting. Also, there are no voices. So the original ROM had voices from the movie, and they're not using that. It is probably for licensing reasons, because when you do that, you also have to license from the actor, and that could be a lot of money. And this was already $700 for just 2 games, and a very frustrating build. So they probably did not want it to be higher than that. I mean, it's obviously got the Disney tax, and also all these lights. There are 4 different light sources. 5 different light sources, 5 different light sources. One of them is a black light bar that is at the top of the cabinet. And but there's a light down underneath the control deck. There is the light inside the joystick. There's the marquee light, and then there's the light bar, which you can actually change. So there's a button, and you'll see it in this video at the end. There's a button that you can actually change what shows up in that light. SJ Man says the original disc of Tron cabs are pretty rare. Yeah, there were a couple different versions, but one that the iconic one is the one you actually walked inside of it and then you stood there, and so it was all neon around you. And it'd been so long since I played Discs of Tron. I'm actually surprised I have like a 5-minute time here. Like, I actually played this for 5 minutes, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And essentially, if you've never played Discs of Tron, you have your joystick that's your character moving around, and then you have the disc, and so you move around with the joystick and you aim with the disc. And you're trying to basically knock the other guy off. You can throw 3 discs at a time, and then they're also throwing discs at you, and you don't want to fall off the discs. And then they actually start to introduce barriers that you have to work around, so you can't actually... and there I go. I got rezzed. You can't fire through the barrier. And that was it. That was the end of my time. So I fought for the users and lost. End of game. My score ranking was number 6. I have since gotten a higher score. And once again, when they want your initials, they really mean just your first and last initial, not a 3 initial. And I was skillful, is what the game said. So it was very skillful. Tiger Claw says it would be fun if there were 2 players online. There was no 2-player mode. I thought that when they were doing the online, that maybe they were doing 2-player online. But no, it's literally just a leaderboard. And at this time, I was 180th in the world. So there already is a firmware update. It took about, I'm speeding the video up 4 times, but it took about 3 minutes to download and install this firmware update. I will say this about the Wi-Fi. My arcade cabinet is pretty far away from the Wi-Fi router, so the Wi-Fi doesn't go all the way out there. And so what it does is if it can't connect to the Wi-Fi, it deletes the setting. And so you have to re-input the Wi-Fi setting every time, which really sucks. If it sees it later, it's like, oh, no, the password must change. We're going to delete it out. And you have to use the joystick to be able to do that. So the big thing this firmware update changed is the Arcade1up splash screen. Watch this Arcade1up. It's different than the one earlier, which is the generic Arcade1up splash screen. Watch this. This is the cool thing they added. Ready? There they are. Light cycles got added. That's the only thing I can tell that got added. Tireclaw says, looks like it's time to invest in Wi-Fi mesh system. No, an extender, really. So one of my coworkers bought this cabinet, and he gave me his name. So my name is Blackwolf, and all you do is you can look for them and you add them to your favorites, which theoretically is supposed to let you compare your score to them. Unfortunately, it didn't really work for me all that well. So I found my coworker, I put him in, and it's like, all right, yeah, he's on your favorites list. Awesome, good job. Well, it doesn't show it here. But if I scrolled around, I found his score, and there's a little star next to it saying, hey, he's one of your favorites. But what it's supposed to do, and my coworker actually sent me screenshots, is that it actually cycles through and showed us together. So that's what it's supposed to do. But it didn't do it for me. So I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, that is the Tron cabinet. One thing to note is that, it is taller. The blacklight reflective artwork is only on the inside. It is not on the outside of the cabinet. I have blacklights in my arcade room, and you can see that it does not reflect on the side of the cabinet. I actually turned on a light, a different light, to be able to get the artwork here. And the stool matches with it. Here's the neat thing. There is a headphone jack on the control panel, so you can put in headphones. Just plug it right in. You don't have to mod it to do that or anything. So that's something that I hadn't seen on the other cabinets and stuff. And so it really does look nice. And the light bar down at the bottom, there's this little tiny button on the screen that you can change what color the light bar is. It doesn't save this setting. You actually have to hit this every time you turn it on. But I thought that was a nice little touch there. So that is Arcade1up TRON, $700. It's got some issues. The build was not as straightforward as other builds. It took me twice as long to build it. And it was very confusing on hooking everything up. I finally did get it. I didn't break anything, but I was routing power to the wrong areas. And the Breakman says, all the pretty ones have issues. And Rob Roberts says, I can sort of see the premium. I mean, yes, Disney tax, but I appreciate that they are making small improvements and it's a little taller, etc. The new big blue cabinet is also taller, and it does the same thing. The Street Fighter Big Blue cabinet, that's how it works. It's not one panel on the side, now it's the two. Pod Culture says, I was swearing like a sailor at the end of my Star Wars build. I was not swearing at the build. I was swearing that it took too long and I couldn't have this video on last week when I wasn't having frame drops on Twitch. So would I recommend it? If you're a huge fan of Tron, yes. If you have a lot of nostalgia for Tron, yes. But it is a lot of money for just 2 games. And really only one of those 2 games is really worth it.